Can you see it? Paul, it's recording. Can you see the red light? Okay. I hope others will join Dr. Revis. It's we've got 26 students here, and we need a few more to join. But we've got a lot to cover tonight, so let's go ahead and get started. Dr. Revis, I thought about it today. It's week 5. Can you believe that this is 1/3 of the semester?
That's hard to believe.
1/3 of the semester, Tara. It's honestly, it is. Anyway, I know that they probably realize that it's been 5 weeks, but it's just gone by so quickly. It really has. But anyway, Dr. Revis, would you like to bring welcome and let's get started. I think we're going to delve into it today instead of spending a lot of upfront time.
Okay, well, welcome to week 5. As Dr. Sedman said, you are now 1/3 of the way through. And so, yay. And pat yourself on the back for sticking in there with us. I know that last week was a big week, a big writing week, and you've got a lot of writing to do this week as well, but it's not a lot of research, but you're going to apply some things, and we'll get into that with your task 4. So welcome, and we're going to dive right in. Dr. Stedman?
And I want to go ahead and just a reminder, that this week is the week that you must do your AAPSL Zoom conference. And we say task 1 and 2, but you've gotten task 3. Talk about the AAPSL, the process, the forming your PLCs, the good, the bad, the ugly, but make sure that you go back to the starters that Dr. Revis pointed out last week that's in Blackboard for you, and make sure that you stick to the topics, that it is a scholarly discussion, that the Zoom leader does effectively lead, that you have your agenda, all of those things that we talked about last week. I will say, Dr. Revis, I've had two teams that have submitted, and I've already reviewed those videos, and they did an amazing job. I was so pleased with
we lost you, Dr. Stedman, there for a minute.
I said, can you hear me now? Here it goes again. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. Let me cut the video off because I'm shaking. Let me just stop that. But and Dr. Revis, do your finger or let me know if you can't hear me the entire. But they did an amazing job. I was so pleased with just the leadership. Every participant member in the group they stayed on topic. I was very pleased. Alex did an excellent job leading his group, and Pam, you did an amazing job leading your group as well. And the Zoom teams I was just very, very proud of those. I just had an opportunity to view them because I had some sit down time while I was supposed to be listening to some other stuff. And I paid attention to what my students had done. So, but anyway, kudos to those 2 teams. And, I know that you and I are going to get excellent work from the rest of the students. So that's all we're going to say about that. Now.
Well, and let me just say that I've had 1 team submit, but I haven't looked at it. So I kind of save those till the end when I have some downtime, but I will get to yours. Okay. I'm sure they're going to be great.
Yeah, I normally don't have time. I just happen to have the time. So I'm glad that, that I had it. So I was very pleased though. Going into task 4, well, first of all, you see in the fuchsia color, we're not saying anything about task 3 other than we're saving it to the end. And for those of you that feel like that you need our attention, you're grown. You can decide whether you feel like you need to stay or not. However, remember all the completed revisions must be to Dr. Revis and me by Thursday. So, you need to think about whether you need to stay with us or not. And that will be at the end. And those that it doesn't apply to, those that don't need to stay, you don't feel like you need to stay, then you can sign off and you can go on and do other things. But we'll be here for those that feel like that they need to stay at the end. And again, it's optional. But we're going to go ahead and delve into task 4. And before we actually bring up the task 4 template and the resources in Blackboard, Dr. Revis is going to precede that with talking to you about action plans and the gap analysis that you have to actually look for. So Dr. Revis, I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to turn it over to you at this time and let you do what you need to do.
All right. Now, you have seen this PowerPoint before. It may not have meant much to you the day you saw it, because that was the first Thursday night Zoom class, and we were giving you an overview of all the tasks of the AAPSL. So by the time you got to task 4, you probably were overwhelmed and tuned me out. But anyway, I'm hoping that this will be more meaningful to you right now. And we're going to start talking about school improvement process and action planning and the gap analysis. What you're doing in the AAPSL is you're simulating the process that you would use if you were a principal and when you become a principal of the school improvement process. And this is actually the framework that South Carolina uses. And I like it because it's got a great visual. And what I've done is overlay the different parts of the AAPSL on this visual. So the first thing you did was in AAPSL Task 1, a PLC research section. You established your PLC and you had an organizational meeting. Task 1. And Task 2 is where you completed your data dive, your data analysis, and you identified your most pressing need. In Task 3, that we're currently finishing up on this week, is where you delved into the research around your most pressing need, trying to find the root causes and research-based solutions. And you are meeting with your PLC, if not last week, this week, on selecting programs and or strategies to move forward with. So the next thing we do is we devise a plan. And that's what Task 4 is about. Develop an action plan to address the identified problem or need. And in this task, you will determine long range, short range, mid range goals, and you will define roles and responsibilities. You will also determine indicators of success. You will note formative assessments, summative assessments, and again, your indicators of success. How will you know if you met your goals? So I love this visual. I wish I could take credit for this, but I can't. This visual is from Dr. Steve Stone. He works in our program and in the doctoral program. He did this back in 2019, and I wish I could take credit, but I can't. It's a great visual to talk about a gap analysis. Down here is your current state, where you are now. And here is the desired state, where you want to go. And in the middle is where your action plan comes in. How do we need to do what do we need to do to get there, and how do we do that? And that's all. So this is what your template looks like, and we're going to go into this with your helpful hints document, and you have to use this template. Now I added a little word, 2 words here, and we'll talk about this again as we go over Task 4. You would put your specific activities here, and we like to see 4 to 5 specific activities, things you are going to do to address your most pressing need. Then you have your timeline, your person's responsible, what resources do you need? And here's the column where I want everybody to pay close attention to. Formative assessment method. When we think of formative assessment in education, we always, as teachers, we always think of that being as an ongoing check-in assessment that we give our students. But for the purposes of our action plan, this is the step where we're monitoring teachers. So this is about how do we monitor our teachers? How do we know this action plan is getting carried out? And then you have your summative assessment method, which of course would be about how your students have grown and improved. And then you have your goal and then your indicator of success. So again, we'll go into that as we view the helpful hints document. So I always suggest everybody to start here start on your graphic organizer. This is what this is, right? When we teach students how to write, we always tell them, start with a graphic organizer. Start with your PLC team right here and fill out every column and every row for every activity that you're going to do with your PLC team. Then you can back up and now you have to explain it narratively. We'll give you an example. There are 6 topics and headings that you have to go through. And again, it just follows your action plan. But you can't just say, see action plan column 1. No, you've got to explain it narratively. Then you have your action plan, and then you're going to have prompt 2 here, excuse me, which is sharing your action plan with your principal and leadership team. And then there's more narrative work. So we're building our plan. We've done our research, we've done our data dive, and now we are going to build our plan. We're going to close our gap.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Revis. And with that in mind, let's go ahead and pull up. Can you see my screen, Dr. Revis?
It says you have started
Okay.
screen sharing. Here it comes. It's coming.
Okay. Yeah, it was
Yes.
just slow. Okay. It was slow. Let me minimize that. And then let me pull up. Dr. Revis, I think we need to begin with, let's begin with the helpful hints. Don't you think so? Let's do that.
Oh, I always refer
Yeah.
people back to that helpful hints document.
Okay. Okay, as Dr. Revis has already introduced, task 4 is all about a plan of action. And let's go ahead and just delve into a prompt 1. And again, make sure you read the description and the instructions carefully. Prompt 1 of task 4 is the development of your action plan for your identified problem. That identified problem, the most pressing need, back at the end of task 2. So now you're ready to say, okay, we know what the problem is. Now we're putting a plan of action in to try to solve the problem. You're first going to explain your action plan in narrative form. In other words, what is the purpose of an action plan? What is the purpose of your action plan? And that's just a short narrative that talks about the action plan process, kind of like what Dr. Revis has already said. There's going to be 7 headings following that narrative introduction of what an action plan is, or the purpose of an action plan. 7 headings. And you're going to start out with heading number 1, which is, here it is, the importance of the action plan, research-based. What is the importance of it? Well, that is actually where you begin. Your narrative work will address the purpose of the action plan based on what research says, not what you think. What does the research say? And I would think, Dr. Revis, that you would cite a reference or 2 in there as well, based on what the research says. You would need to reference the research here. Again, we're not looking for your opinion. What does the research say? And we've actually provided you an excerpt of what, of what that should look like. Don't copy this. It's just an example of something that you can model. An action plan is. Action plans in education for, according to Savesky 2015. You see the research is there. So again, it's just another mini research section. And then it goes
And
on.
Dr. Stedman, Dr. Stedman, I'd like to see at least one reference, at least one. And your textbook, Up textbook, has has some great information about the importance of an action plan.
And there it is. Ubben et al. 2007 explains that action planning contains several elements, blah, blah, blah. And it goes on and talks about it. So yes, this is a perfect example of how you can let us know that you are reading in your textbooks and that you're using it, effectively in your research. Okay, Dr. Revis, if you'll tag team and you'll go with the next heading.
All right, our next heading is called Alignment with Student Learning Outcomes. And so here your action plan has to align with the outcomes. Again, go back to your your graphic organizer. And how do you know that you're successful with this strategy? Again, you are looking at setting goals. Now, when I talk about outcomes, I'm talking about specific outcomes with percentages and numbers, okay? And here's your example. And you notice they talk about the 33% drop. And then they go on and talk a little bit about during the pandemic. Of course, you're over that at this point, even though COVID is still around. But anyway, you are going to talk about how this aligns with your learning outcomes.
And Dr. Revis, I would say, okay, some of you may think, well, when we did task 2, we did our data dive and we talked, some of the language may carry over into this as well. And it's okay. You won't go back and copy and paste what you've done there, but you may take pieces of that because it aligns with what you're having to put into this section. So you may say, well, I need some of that information. So why go back and get it? So, and that's perfectly okay.
Mm-hmm.
And again, excellent examples for you to follow with this. But again, you make it your own. The next heading is, okay, as you're looking at your plan of action, you're going to narratively talk about, okay, once you identify what those activities are going to be, you're going to establish short-term goals, midterm goals, and long-term goals. In that order, you're going to talk about, okay, based on these activities, what can I go ahead and do now? What can the PLC team lead in doing now to attack the identified problem or to move forward with addressing that identified problem? Then what is something that you can't do right now, but you can get to, shortly down the road? Those would be your midterm goals. And then what are the long-term goals? What are the things that it's going to take time to get there, and that you've got to work towards that, but it's going to take time. But for your 4 or 5 areas that you're going to identify as possible solutions to your problem, you're going to identify the short, midterm, and long-term goals for each and every one of them. And again, make sure you clearly delineate short-term, midterm, and long-term. And notice when you're spelling it, the hyphen between the words. Sometimes that's an easy overlook. And again, another example. My PLC and I decided that use of the academic enrichment block was a strong opportunity to support the core math block through both direct and individualized instruction, and to go on and talk. But then let me, okay, here it goes. Therefore, the short-term goal is a realistic and attainable goal that will be evaluated for its progress in November 2021. And again, if it's Dr. Revis, I would think if you're dealing with school-wide literacy, the short-term goal could be taking the results of your next benchmark assessment and basically aligning it with what you've already done and kind of see where you are to see where you need to go, because that aligns itself with your end of grade or end of course or end of grade testing that you'll be doing. And then it goes on to talk about midterm. This midterm goal has been identified and as attainable. It's just we'll be using the open up curriculum. They've identified, what they're going to be doing, and Dreambox. And those were programs that they would have identified with task 3 as programs that they feel like will help. And then it goes into the long-term goals as well. Okay, Dr. Revis, number 5.
Okay. All right, so your heading here is about the specific activities aligned with your designated goals and objectives. That's going to be your first column. You must identify all activities that you're going to use to meet your short-term, midterm, and long-term goals and objectives for your action plan. Now, how many activities? Again, I like to see 4 to 5. If you are implementing a new program, be it an online tool or a set of instructional strategies, I would think one of your goals would need to be conducting professional development for your teachers. That's a perfect goal. And it would probably need to be something you do fairly quickly in the beginning before you start implementing a lot of strategies. So again, you need to make sure that you have 4 to 5 really well-defined goal activities, and that you have that chart filled out every row for every activity.
And Dr. Revis, please be reminded that when you identify what these activities are, and you'll go, you cannot, everything has to be academics oriented. It cannot deal with attendance, and it cannot deal with discipline. Those cannot be strategies that you're looking at, not at this point. Okay.
Right. You're trying to develop those activities that would lead you to implementation of the program, either online tool or set of research-based strategies that you identify in task 3.
Look at there, Dreambox.
Dreambox.
And then I think down here, Dr. Revis, I think it goes on to talk about Mastery Connect.
Mm-hmm.
So see, whatever they introduced in task 3, they are using that as a part of what they're doing in task 4. So what you've done, parts of what you've done in previous tasks will have no choice but to be used or identified in task 4. Okay, the next heading. Your heading is indicators of success with measurement techniques. In other words, how do you know you have successfully reached those short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals? How do you know? What procedures are going to be in place? How are you going to go back and assess this? Other words, you don't know whether it's working or not. So you've got to, you're going to narratively meet with your PLC, and you and the team are going to talk about, ways that you can go back, and when you implement these strategies, how do you know whether they're working? How do you know whatever that short-term goal is working, or that midterm goal, or that long-term goal. And if they're not working, this gives you a time you can go back and edit the plan, later on. You may have to. That's the purpose of looking at things at this point to see if it's working, because if it's not, do you want to continue doing what you've been doing? No, you've got to go back and revamp and revise and to put a plan in place if something is not working. And then again, there's your examples. The key indicator of success will be measured by the short-term goal of students consistently earning at least a 65% on their formative and summative assessments from September 2021 to April 2022. And so you're gauging student success there. You're monitoring student success. And it talks about when they're actually going to do that. And then it goes on to talk about other things that they're going to do as well. Okay.
Okay, so your next section, you're going to talk about clarification and roles and responsibilities. Who has been assigned to do what? Now, we would expect to see some strategies, all teachers, but when we're talking about monitoring, I would think that would have to come under your administrative team responsibility. So who's been assigned to do what? And it should not be Tara Bradford's doing all this. One person cannot implement the plan. Okay. So what have they been assigned to do? And name the people involved. You could say like principal and assistant principal. You could say like instructional coach, all teachers, so on and so forth. Okay. And here is an example of how that is written out narratively.
Okay. And again, this is in your Blackboard shell. You have the same information to look at yourself. The next heading is, and this is the big one, Dr. Revis, that we always have to point out. Your heading is formative and summative assessment criteria. And again, Dr. Revis has alluded to this already, but formative assessments for this purpose is not for the students. It's for the teachers in the process. In other words, whatever those activities are that you've assigned to do, and the short-term, midterm, and long-term goals that you get, how do you know that teachers are doing what they're supposed to do? How do you know? What process do you have in place? So a formative assessment is a fidelity check. Are things being done with fidelity? You can ask most any teacher, are you doing so? Not any teacher is going to really talk bad about themselves. They're going to say, yes, I'm doing this. Or just, how do you know? It's your responsibility to know that what is supposed to be implemented is actually being implemented, is happening in the classroom with the students. How do you know the people assigned to do the what are actually doing what is supposed to be done, and it is being done timely and correctly? Dr. Revis, you want to talk about anything about that, and then talk about summative assessments?
Right. So let's talk about, if you were a school leader, how would you monitor the implementation of a set of strategies or the action plan? So one way that I would do that is I'm going to be in classrooms every day and doing instructional rounds, or whatever you call it in your school. Walkthroughs, exactly. Thank you. And those are informal, right? And I'm going to be giving feedback to my teachers. I may even tell teachers, this week when I come into your classroom, I'm going to be looking specifically for this to be implemented in the classroom. And a couple of weeks from now, I'm going to be looking for something else. But I am going to be monitoring the adult behaviors. It could be also that another way you could monitor is, I don't like this way as well, but they could submit lesson plans. You can do both together, but if you're only going to do one, leaders need to be in classrooms. And then, of course, your summative assessments are about the students. Determining if what has been implemented is making a difference. And so you have some interim assessments that you can look at along the way, as well as your end of grade assessments, end of course. And then here is an example. Now, folks, I'm telling you, if you don't have in there formative assessments is monitoring of the adults, and this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to kick it back and your evaluator will kick it back. So this is a biggie. So highlight it and get your highlighter out and mark it in 3 colors.
Right. So remember, formative is for the teachers. Summative is for the students, for our purposes for this assignment. Okay. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay. Now, once each of these 7 topics have been narratively addressed, the candidate will take the same information and put it into a graphic organizer. You will use the one that has been provided in the template. The information in red states you can choose, but that should, well, we said it should have been eliminated, but it's talking about a PERT chart. You don't have a choice. You can do a PERT chart, but that's icing on the cake. You must use the graphic organizer that Dr. Revis has already talked about, and the one that we'll show in just a little bit. But there's an example of a PERT chart and some people decide to do it and do a great job with it, Dr. Revis, but that is not what we want for these purposes. This is what you must use. Okay. This is what you must use. And let's look at the first activity. They've listed direct and small group instruction. The timeline, they're going to do it 3 times a week. Who's responsible? 8th grade math teachers. What are the resources needed? Face-to-face instruction with daily lessons through Open Up, workbook, and online activities, use of small group remediation. What is the formative assessment? Weekly lesson checks topic. Who does the lessons? The teachers. So you're going to, back to what Dr. Revis said, you're going to check the lesson plans or whatever. That's one of the strategies there. There's summative assessment, unit assessments on Mastery Connect. The test at the end is what they're going to do. The goals, the short term, and they've listed students will achieve 65% mastery on formative and summative assessments. And indicators of success, increased progress on 8th grade standards in math starting November 21st. And you can see that. You can, when you go back and you look at the data, you can actually look at the benchmarks and you can tell whether progress is being made or not. So that is a true indicator of success. Dr. Revis, what would you like to say about the graphic organizer before we move on to the next?
I think that's good. I personally like to see a percentage of increase or a target number out there on that indicator of success. And let me tell you why. As a school leader, if you put a number on something, it because it's tangible, we can see it. So I like to see, instead of increased progress, I like to see 3% more of our kids, 5% more of our students will meet grade level proficiency, whatever. But putting a percentage or a number target helps people work to achieve that.
And make sure it's whatever it is reasonable. Make sure it's reasonable.
Yes.
Don't put something out there that you can't do.
Right. To say you're going to increase the number of students by 10% who are meeting proficiency, that that's a steep goal. That's a heavy lift.
Right. Now, once all this is done, you go to prompt 2. You've got to share this action plan with the principal leadership team to discuss the possible implementation. You want it to be the best thing since sliced bread. You want them to say, wow, the wow factor. You want them to say, yes, we want to do this immediately. Can you make them? No. Will every principal embrace it and do it? No, don't get your feelings hurt. You will have done your job. You will have learned the process and you move on. However, we hope that it's going to be so good that they can't turn it down, they can't resist it, and that you can move on with it. They may even say, you know, we need to hold on to this and we need to address this maybe when school starts back in the fall, you know, start out with something. So, you know, just present it, be very positive, and you know, move forward no matter what the outcome is. But you've got to present it to your administration. This could be videoed, but it's not required. There must be clear evidence of the meeting. It's not a video. There could be a picture of you presenting. And at a minimum, you're going to do a PowerPoint presentation. And again, you're going to make sure we can read the slides when you put them in task 4 for us to see. Some of the time they're so small and we have to send them back. We need to actually be able to see what you're presenting. So the slides would be, you know, that's a part of the presentation. And this is an example of some of the language that you will use as you are leading into this activity. It talks about the presentation, and this would be where your PowerPoint would be with your principal. And then there's those things. I'm not going to get into all of that. There's the actual, and see, that's too small. I can't read that. Can you, Dr. Ravis? So that's too small. So make sure that we can read it. However, in your discussion, prior to your discussion, you go into that discussion prepared, along with your presentation, the following topics. You've got to talk about these topics with your principal when you are making your presentation about your action plan. And this is where, and these are the headings. Again, this goes with prompt 2. It goes with the discussion that you're going to have with your principal about your plan of action. Dr. Revis, would you like to talk about
Building efficacy. Okay.
Yes.
Right. The first heading is about building efficacy. Now, look at the word that's underlined here, second sentence. What does the research say about building efficacy amongst the teaching staff for improving student achievement? So I would expect at least one reference, you know, be that Bandura, Todd Whitaker, whomever. You need to talk about building efficacy. And so that this is a paragraph about building efficacy, that person has looked at the research and is going to share that with the principal about how we build efficacy. You know, one of the hallmarks of a low-performing school, if you happen to be at a more low-performing school, is a lack of teacher efficacy. They just feel like they don't have the sense of that they can do anything about the situation. They're powerless. And so what you want to do is you want to look at the research about what the research is about building efficacy. And, you know, when students start improving and growing and learning, boy, you talk about a game changer for teachers and building efficacy, that will. So a paragraph about that.
And notice, actually, Dr. Revis, if you do a good job, you're going to have more than one reference from research about efficacy. I don't know how you can hardly not have more than one. And this clearly shows what you need. Just do a good job. You're at a point now that you know what you should be doing there. Let's look at
and don't forget your APA style format.
The next heading is strategies for sustained growth. Now, you don't want to do something, do all this work, and then in 2 months backslide, or when school starts back, backslide and have to start all over again. What are the strategies that you're going to put in place to make sure that when you get from point A to point B, that you can stay at point B and begin working towards getting to point C? You don't want to go backwards. What does the research say about moving forward in the quest for improving student achievement? Again, not what Kathy Revis thinks, not what Danny Stedman thinks. What does the research say? Unless it's our research from our dissertations, you know, it's not what we think. It would be our research. It would be part of our research. And Dr. Revis, by the way, my research was on teacher efficacy for middle school teachers in Robinson County and student achievement a few years ago. So what are the strategies for sustained growth? You know, what does the research say? What can you do? And there is research out there. And again, this is another narrative example of what the research says and what you can model after. Okay, Dr. Revis.
In the next heading, it's about addressing issues concerning diversity. So with your action plan in place, what are the issues dealing with exceptional children, ESL, migrant education? And when you did your research on some of these online tools and some of these research-based strategies, I'm sure the research showed the efficacy with some of these special groups of students. So you would want to first discuss this with your PLC team and then share candidly with your principal or leadership team. You know, this includes any issues that could hinder the growth process. And you would want to narratively talk about this very candidly.
And again, diversity could be a multitude of things based on your personal school environment and situation. So we've just listed some of the things that could be. It could really be almost anything.
You know,
that could possibly hinder the process.
Right. And one of the things you might want to talk about here is particularly if you are addressing, a lot of you talk about this bubble kids, our lowest performing and bubble kids. So talk about what you're going to do to make sure your gifted students are getting what they need and they continue to be challenged so that they're growing as well.
Okay. Your heading is resources. Now, resources involves two things. Resources involve human resources, and it involves fiscal or money resources, things. Okay, to get the job done, to get it done, who are you going to need and what are you going to need? Now, when you begin identifying fiscal resources, you've got to be, again, realistic. You can't put a $1 million program in there and think that it's going to solve your problem. And your school, you're a Title I school, and you don't have the monies to go buy $1 million. So don't put something out there and say this we think that this will solve our problem, or we think that this is a strategy if you can't afford it. So, you know, if you're a Title I school, you can make the recommendation based on your research. You can make the recommendation that this is an affordable program, and we feel like that this would be a wise use of our Title I monies, you know, to be able to move forward with this program. And, you know, and that could be one of those programs that you identified in task 3. Dreambox, Study Island, Edmentum. It could be any of those things. It could be taking, as we said before, taking an existing program that you have not used, that you have used minimally, maybe just in one grade area, and expand it to the whole school. Those are things that you can do. And then human resources. Is it teachers that you're going to need? Existing teachers to get the job done? Is it going to be administration going to need to be involved? Is your curriculum coach, literacy coaches, are they going to need to be involved? And if so, how? If it's Title I, and just say that you feel like that you have identified in that the biggest need is in fourth grade, and it's the biggest need is fourth grade literacy, and you've got 30 students in every classroom, and you've got 4 classes. You feel like that if we had one more teacher in fourth grade, that we could have a smaller class size, and that would help us provide more one-on-one assistance with our students. And the recommendation could be, Mr. Principal, Miss Principal, do you think with our Title I monies that we could afford a Title I teacher to go into fourth grade to possibly cut down on the number of students that we've got in that classroom? That's worth asking if that's what you think that's what the need is, you and your team thinks that's worth asking, because that's what those monies are designed for. So make sure that your requests are realistic requests. Dr. Revis?
Okay, and so the next heading is about establishing a shared vision of learning. What are the plans for getting everybody on board and moving in the same direction? As a school leader, this is the toughest step right here. This is where the rubber meets the road. You can have a wonderful, beautiful action plan, but if you cannot get everybody on board on the same bus and moving in the same direction, it's worthless. So how do we establish a shared vision of learning? And again, I would expect to see some research here about, this is one from your text, and there are others out there. But you need to talk about that. And if you talk it from the framework of, if you were a school leader, how would you do that? How would you establish in your school that shared vision of learning?
Right. Courtney Blue, are you with us? I can't see everybody.
I am.
Courtney, talk for a minute. I'm going to put you on the spot. Talk about what you discussed with your Zoom team, the eye opener that you have had with your PLC. You made a strong, very valid comment about about the buy-in.
That sometimes is challenging, despite, maybe being in a Title I school. That might be one factor, but another factor could be the people that you work with. I'm sorry, I'm at a game. But so initially choosing members from my PLC, I thought, everybody was going to be on the same team the entire time, but there has been some shakiness. We all know that the pressing need is NY literacy, but how we approach it has varied throughout our conversation. So sometimes I have to get back on track because people go on a tangent, and it can be challenging.
Yeah, and that's what you said, Courtney. You said you had realized that it's hard because not everybody wants to get on board, and it's hard to get them on board to convince them. So that's what Dr. Revis is saying. This is going to be a challenge to get everybody riding on the same bus with you. But how you going to do it? Thanks, Courtney.
And I think that's where we get at the crux of strong leadership right there.
It does. It does. So, but Dr. Revis, in the videos that I've looked at, this came out. Courtney's was just really prevalent with what she said, but they all talked about some of the challenges that they had with, you know, already with some buy-in with some things. And then, as always, you have your reference section, and this would be pretty comprehensive, I would think, after having done all of the research that you will have done, you know, for task 4, and then again your appendices. Dr. Revis, one of the things that I'm finding is do not get slack. You must always, at a minimum, have something proving that you are leading your PLC. At this point, you cannot waver from that. So make sure at a minimum that you're proving that you are continuing to lead the PLC. And I will tell you, Dr. Revis, you know for a fact that the evaluator is going to clearly look for that language when the AAPSL is put together and it's submitted for final evaluation, because it's out of our hands then. We can only take you so far, and then that evaluator is they're going to look for that.
I want to go back up if I could and talk a little bit more about getting buy-in. I mean, right now, some of you guys are in leadership roles within your school, maybe an instructional facilitator, maybe even an assistant principal right now. And so you may be thinking, well, if I were the principal, people would just do what I ask. Not necessarily. They may do what you ask, and to a certain extent, but you have to make sure that you give people reasons for wanting to change. Nobody likes change but a wet baby. Now, Dr. Stedman and I love change. That's what we've been about all our careers, making change and improving. But a lot of people don't. They're just happy to stay right where they are. And so you have to understand that you guys are probably change agents in your school because you are seeking to be a school leader. But don't get upset when everybody else down the hall, up and down the hall, are not looking to change. They get comfortable where they are. So it's about motivating people. And, you know, we change because we want to make a difference for children. That's why we change. And we can do this. But you have to be actively engaged in that classroom. You have to be visible in classrooms, in and out, coaching your teachers, encouraging your teachers to reach out there and try different things. It's scary to try different things as a teacher. We know what we've been doing and we've been very comfortable with that, but things have to change. And that, my friends, is the hardest thing about leadership. All right, I've preached my sermonette now.
Okay, and I want to say again, back to your template, follow the template. Remember again, if it's in black, it stays. If it's in yellow, that means you've got to write something, and then once you write it, what you going to do with that yellow highlighting? You're going to take it out. If it's in red, that means that those are some suggestions of things that you should consider including. Now, once you've done that, what you're going to do with that red? You're going to take it out. So the only thing that remains is the black. Here's the template. This is in the template. This is the organizer that you're going to use, and you'll use this consistently throughout this program. And then there's an example of what a chart looks like. Again, that's icing on the cake if you decide that you want to do that. And some people are very creative and can do that and do it well. And again, here it goes again. Make sure that you follow it in the order that it's given. And then lastly, in Blackboard, there's the completed task 4. There it is, the importance of the action plan, research-based, and step by step, everything that Dr. Revis and I have shared with you. Alignment, there's the heading, alignment with student learning outcomes, short-term, mid-term, long-term objectives, or goals. Again, specific, everything. This is a completed task 4 that you can model after and see exactly what it is that you've got to do. Now, look here. There's a completed graphic organizer action plan. Look at it. Again, something that you can clearly model after. Completed prompt 2. When they talk about efficacy, this is what they talk about. Strategies for sustained growth, issues concerning diversity, resources. All of those things are listed. They're listed here for you.
So Dr. Stedman, what if I don't get a meeting with my principal before Sunday
That's okay. They probably won't. This is a lot of work. 99% of you will not have that opportunity, and that's okay. Again, you just put a disclaimer in there for Dr. Revis and me, and you let us know when you've got it scheduled for next week. You need to try to get it as early next week as possible, because you've got to, you've got to have this to us revised by Thursday, at the latest. So you need to try to get it Monday or Tuesday, if possible, so you can go ahead and get it over with. You've got a lot of writing to do. It looked, honestly, once you get into this, you're gonna realize how much you can tap into other work that you've already done and the understanding of it. So it looks comprehensive and boy, it is a lot, but what you've done, in my opinion, Dr. Revis, what you've done already, time is more time consuming than this once you get into it, because you've already got your head wrapped around that problem and what you need to do. You have an understanding of things now, so that
now, and let me just piggyback on you here, if you don't mind, Dr. Stedman. Just because you don't get to have your PLC meeting with your principal this week, I should still see prompt 2 completed, except for that meeting and your PowerPoint. Okay.
Well, you should actually have the PowerPoint ready. You should have or be guided towards that. You should know what you're going to do. You just haven't had time to do it yet.
Right.
So you need to try to go ahead and, to the best of your ability. Now, if you can't, I'm not going to hold that against you if you don't have your PowerPoint, but try to go ahead and get that worked out. But if you're working on your PowerPoint, Dr. Revis, we really need to see that PowerPoint before they meet with their principals.
That would be good. But again, do all of your narrative work in prompt 2.
Right.
And have that ready.
If possible, we need to see that. Tara?
Hey, thank you. I have 2 questions. The PowerPoint, so it goes in at the end of prompt 1 as a figure. Okay.
Well,
correct.
it would go, Dr. Revis, at the end of prompt 2, wouldn't it?
In the sample, I'm sorry, in the sample, it was at the end of prompt 1 prior to prompt 2.
Was it? Okay.
I mean, what difference?
I don't know, Dr. Revis, that could have been a mistake when it was put in there. I would say, Tara, Dr. Revis, wouldn't you say it needs to go at the end of task 2?
I think evaluators like to see that at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will tell you, I sometimes miss it. I'm saying no, I told you to do your presentation. You'd already done it. It really needs to stick out, because if you don't have it done, the evaluator will send it back.
And I had the same problem. Some of them had to say, Dr. Stedman, it was in there. And after a while, after I've read 100 papers, my eyes are crossing and it's going together. So I did miss a couple of them, and I had to go back and I said, yeah there it is. So,
I like to see it at the end of prompt 2.
Okay. So with the PowerPoint, when we're doing that presentation, is it I know you were gonna have an action plan in it, and then is it addressing the headings in prompt 1, or is it addressing all the headings in prompt 2, or is it addressing all of them?
It doesn't need to address everything, Tara. You're gonna highlight the key things that you need to talk about. Remember, you can't keep your principal
Forever.
cabinet forever. So you need to make sure that you are highlighting and what it is, it helps you as you're presenting, it gives you your talking points. So I would look at it as, what are the talking points that I need to include in there, and organize it and let it be your organizer and your talking points, for your presentation. That's the way I would look at it. It
Okay.
doesn't need to be a regurgitation of the action plan. It needs to be something that will help you as you are doing your presentation.
Okay.
And I would say you need to go back and remind them what your most pressing need is, according to your data sets. You need to remind them of the recommendation of the program or online tool or research-based strategies that you recommend to implement. And then you talk about, the action plan.
And I would
Instead of
consider,
strategies.
because most of you are going to do yours face-to-face with your principals, when it comes to that online resource, make hand copies of something that you can put in their hands, that they can hold and they can look at while you're talking. Participants like stuff. As teachers, you like stuff. And so, give them something that they can look at while you're talking, if you can find something, okay? Good questions, though.
Dr. Stedman,
Sure.
this is Pam.
Hey, Pam.
So my admin team is going to be out of the office on Thursday and Friday and Monday through Wednesday. Can I do it on Zoom?
You can, yes.
Okay,
You can.
because I won't see them till next Thursday
Well,
after tomorrow.
You'll be fine, Pam. Do it on Zoom.
Okay.
It'll be the same thing. In fact, during COVID, we lived on Zoom, and that's the only thing we could get from students for about 2 years was, something from Zoom. So yes, that works fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that goes for anybody else that would, if that works best for you, I have no problem. Zoom is a real world now, and that's, if it works, then, what works best for you. Okay, good questions.
Any other questions about task 4?
Okay. Well, those of you that, you're welcome. Remember, we do not have a session on Thursday night. Use your time wisely. Either Dr. Revis, I am too. Hallelujah. I get to go to choir practice finally after 4 weeks, so I'm happy. Use your time wisely, and your Zoom teams may decide you want to meet then, that because you're used to that time. If you haven't met, you decide that. Again, you're grown, you can decide those things. But use your time wisely. Those of you that that feel like you need to speak with Dr. Revis and me, anything concerning task 3 that should be completed and to us by Thursday of this week, we're asking you to stay on. We're going to stay on for a little bit, but good class tonight. Thank you for your attentiveness, and we appreciate everything that you're doing.
Dr. Stedman, before we leave,
be
reminded, everybody, on the agenda about what is due this Sunday evening at 9. Okay. You want to pull that back up again? I had a question about that.
Yeah, let me pull. And this,
if you're having to do revisions for us, like let's say this week you're revising, some of you, task 3, those revisions need to be into us by Thursday, so we have time to give you feedback. And hopefully that's the only feedback you're going to need. don't forget, you've got to submit that in the AAPSL assignment Dropbox Sunday evening at 9 as well. Okay, so don't forget that.
And
All right.
I'm shaking again. Let me take that thing off. Stop video. Just remember, I did email this to both classes today. Dr. Revis builds houses. Y'all didn't know that. She actually builds houses during the day. That's what I tell her anyway. She does. She flips houses, but she actually is building houses all the time. So she was building a house today. So I sent it to both classes, and I sent this so that you would have it ahead of time. And it's also under week 5 in Blackboard. But just a reminder, let me get it. Come on down. Come on. There it goes. Okay, week 5 responsibilities. Again, remember your AAPSL task 3 revisions are due to Dr. Revis and me by Thursday. And then, once you get it to us, you're going to get a quick turnaround on that. And many of you have already cleared that, and you've got it you've put it in there for a final grade. Your task 2 peer reviews, they were due by today at 6 o'clock. And I think I had a couple that were not in there whenever I came on. So I hope they're in there when I get off. And then by Sunday of this week, remember your Zoom link is due, and then your AAPSL task 4 draft is due to discussion board. And then, by next Tuesday, you must have your peer reviews completed for task 4. Now, as a reprieve, you're going to work hard again this week, but then there's work to do, but it won't be as intensive as it has been. By the time you get to task 5, and we'll introduce that next week, it lightens up. We're going to tell you how to do some things that you need to do for task stream, but then we're going to begin telling you how to begin putting this all together, because you will have completed in the next couple of weeks, you will have completed the whole evidence on the AAPSL. There will not be any, when you get to task 5, there are no peer reviews for task 5. So there's a reprieve there. The only other thing that will be left, Dr. Revis, after they get through with task 4 is task 5. And then
there's no PLC meeting in task 5.
And their case study. We'll talk about the case study. You'll love the case study process. But you will have a little bit of downtime. When I say downtime, it won't be as aggressive as it has been, and it'll give you a chance to catch your breath before we start evidence 2. But I promise you this: when you get to evidence 2, you're going to realize how much the work is not easier, is equally, but the process is not going to be nearly as bad, because you will have already completed a whole evidence, and you will have gotten into that routine, and that process is. And plus, with the AAPSL, you only have 4 tasks instead of 5. I mean, with the APTEL, so you're minus a whole task. So once you get through with the AAPSL, there is still a lot of work to be done, but Dr. Revis, I truly believe that they will have gone on the other side, and the hardest for this semester should be behind them. Wouldn't you think so?
I think so. I think once you climb this hill with the AAPSL, I think you'll see it just gets, the pace slows down just a little bit. And it's still a lot of work, but it's not quite as intense because you're used to that intensity. Just, we give you a little breather because we want to get people caught up who may have fallen behind, but you can't go on and start the APTEL until you finished everything and submitted to your evaluator, the APSL. So that's where we've got to get everybody to right now. And we will.
And then again, remember, I think it's week 8, and we'll talk about that soon. You'll have fall break. That doesn't mean you won't work that week, but it does mean that you don't have to come online with a class. So that gives you a little bit of a catch-up time. And then we have another night built in before the semester's over with to give you a catch-up time as well. And we deliberately did that. But you're going to be all right. No matter how hard we are on you, how much we fuss, whatever we do, we love you and we want you to do well.
And guys, you know, we're going to start talking about next semester at the end of this semester. We try to our best drill in APA for you, because you don't need to fool here on out. And so we're pretty particular with it. And then you've learned it, and it's a non-issue for you. It just comes naturally. But you know, you're not going to have as much guidance on these tasks that we've been giving you, but you won't need it by the time you get through your first semester. You will understand how to take a task, how to take the rubric, break it apart, and address it by the time you get through this semester.
You'll be fine. Okay.
All right.
For those that need to leave, we're going to be here for a few minutes for anybody that wants to stay behind, and we're going to talk next specifically about any questions you may have about task 3 at this point. Okay. And again, this is completely voluntary. Anybody that wants to stay with us. So
Good night, guys.
okay, good night.
See you in a week.
Okay, Kathleen.
Okay, so
Okay, Kathleen, you ready?
yeah, my question is actually a quick one, not about task 3, but PLCs. So
Okay.
we really do we only have one more required meeting for the PLCs? Is there more that we need to keep them for after that? Or I'm just in terms of, because I tell them every week like what we're planning for the next week, and it sounds like this is the last one that's
for this evidence. I would think, Dr. Revis, that you know that for this evidence, and then you will pick back up when you do the AAPSL. You'll have to pick it back up again for a couple of times, maybe 3 times, but a couple of times at least for the AAPSL. Wouldn't you think so, Dr. Revis?
Right. And Kathleen, you can keep the same PLC, or you can switch into a different one, because the AAPSL is about teacher leadership and growth and empowerment.
But you're right. This should be the last one for the AAPSL, Kathleen.
I might offer my team to like still meet, but I just want to know, like, I don't have to have them specifically. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Stedman, I hope you can hear me. I'm at a basketball game.
I can hear you, Kristen. Go ahead.
I submitted both of my peer reviews to the Dropbox, but I was just made aware that I did not submit them to my people. And,
Okay, go ahead and send it to them then.
Okay, and it was Michelle. I'm at the basketball game. Will it be okay if I do it once I get home?
Yes, go ahead and do it when you get home.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Tara, you have another question?
Yes, I did. It was on, Dr. Revis is for you on my feedback on my, task 3. And it was just one big thing. And it was to make sure that I referenced the figures in the narrative part. So I just want to make sure I was clear on that. So just like when I say the 3 online sources that I, researched, and then I just need to put in parentheses, do a parenthetical reference, or did you mean I need to discuss them in depth in the narrative, or I just need to?
You can just say see figure 13.
Okay.
See figure 14, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, just so that, you know, we know that they're right below it somewhere.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to double check before I did the final submission. Thank you.
Shaniqua?
Yes. Quick question. When we're doing the graph with the 3 different programs that we want to present to the team, was it okay if we actually had a professional development opportunity in that, since the research said that that this was a good program or a good professional development for the area of my most pressing need.
Are you talking about like one of the things you're looking for, like down on the left-hand side of your,
You know, the little the chart that says interactive, standard aligned, grade Pacific, like the study island chart.
yeah.
So
yeah.
one of mine was not an actual app or a program. It was professional. Fine.
Yeah, yeah. Really, that comparison chart is just like if you're comparing 3 online programs or 3, instructional strategies that teachers are going to use in their classroom. So if you're trying to, it would seem awkward to try to compare 2 online resources and professional development in the same comparison chart. Now you could pull it off.
Okay.
Just make it make sense.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just wanted to check, Dr. Stedman, you had asked some of us to stay behind. Have you said?
No, unless you need, that's my point. If you need me, I'm here. Dr. Revis is here, but if you feel good about what the changes you've got to make, then, you move on. That's left up to you.
Okay, well, I'd uploaded the wrong draft to my peer review, so you really didn't give me any feedback on what I had, which I was hoping you would have, because I just hadn't, the draft I put up there didn't have the descriptions of the online tools, but it should have had most of everything else. So I'm gonna go ahead and resubmit it.
Resubmit it.
know-
The only thing I saw, Dion, was the what came in was incomplete. So that's what I saw.
Okay, all right, I'll resubmit the
So
correct one.
resubmit. So the only thing I had was what was incomplete. So submit again what you want me to see.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, I'm about to send that to you here shortly.
Okay. Thanks, Dion.
All right, thank you. Y'all have a good night.
You
You
too.
too. Anyone else? Marcella, how's it going for you?
Okay, she's not there. Pam, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm here. I was trying to
Okay,
get
go
my
ahead. I'm
mute
sorry.
unmuted. No. It's coming along. I am right there at the finish line of what I'm working on. So I will get that to you tomorrow. Just trying to make the time work out right now.
Okay, can't hear you, Dr. Revis.
I just said, don't wait. Just birth that baby, Marcella.
Okay, all right, we'll do.
right.
We'll definitely do. Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay. Pam, do you have a question?
No, I think I'm good. I'm just
Okay, good.
here.
I thought you were trying to ask a
listen.
question. Okay, that's okay. I thought you were trying to ask a question.
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, good.
I've revising, so I just have a few more things to do, and then I'll get it to you hopefully tomorrow.
Okay, great leadership on that Zoom team, though.
Thank you.
Great job.
Sorry
on
for the dog barking,
That's
and I
okay.
finally had to put her in my bedroom and close the door.
that. I'm
So-
surprised mine's not. Daniel, did you do what we talked about? Did you take the sabbatical like we talked about? You said you were going to do?
I took a sabbatical. It was not a very productive day. Unfortunately, with what's going on at work, I have 4 hot legal cases, and one's about to erupt. A 5th one's about to erupt.
Wow.
So I was on the phone with administrators and directors and DPI.
So you may as well have been to work, hadn't you?
I might as well have been at work. Exactly. I mean, I was able to knock out the homework I needed to do today, and I was able to review what my Zoom team members have recommended. So I've been able to do some editing,
Okay,
but
good.
other than that, not super
Good.
productive.
Okay, well, maybe tomorrow will be better for you.
I'm hoping so. Because it's going to be another day, sabbatical day.
Okay, well, good. Okay, Okay, Terry, you have another question?
last question. I was just looking
Okay, no,
ahead
it's okay.
about task 3, but on task 4, when we're doing the action plan and we have our specific activities that are listed on the template, and then when you go over to goals, we don't have to put a short-term, midterm, and long-term goal for each activity, because I noticed on the template some of them are short-term, some are long-term.
Some things won't need
Okay.
to be a short-term goal. Yeah.
Crystal, how are you?
Whew, after tonight, like my mind is just an overload. I don't even know. I was like listening. I was like, I thought y'all said by task. Week 4 or something. It was supposed to get better, but I guess.
And it will, Crystal. It's still, once you get into it, it's like I said, I think you'll see that you have a better understanding of it. Right now, you can't see the forest for the trees. So, but once you get into it, it'll be better than what you think. And I love that beautiful smile, no matter what.
Thank you. But I guess where my concern is, I guess because it's like so many places to turn in things, I'm thinking I haven't turned something in somewhere. When I'm looking at the grade, when y'all said the Dropbox, I know I turned my peer reviews into the Dropbox, but then I started to get nervous because I don't have to turn anything else into. Do I need to turn anything into the assignment Dropbox?
Yes, you do. And you're missing those.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to text you and ask you about, because I was like, okay, I'm trying to make sure I'm not putting something in the wrong spot, like the I guess Dr. Lamb was talking about, or somebody.
I don't think you're putting it in the wrong spot. I just don't think you're doing it. You're ready to do it on task 1 and task 2, but you go to the AAPSL assignment Dropbox.
Okay, task.
And when you open that, there'll be a Dropbox for task 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay.
Okay, I saw that. Okay, I'm gonna get my stuff turned in.
I know you've done them on time, and I won't count them late this time, but that's the when I tell you when it's in the instructor review and I say you're ready to turn into the AAPSL assignment Dropbox, that's when you got to go do that. Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You've been doing good work.
I'm trying.
You are.
I'm trying to hang on.
Well, you're hanging.
Okay.
Anybody
Elisa, do you have a question?
I did. I meet with my PLC on Friday afternoons, and I'm trying to honor their contractual time as per the articles on PLCs.
Right.
So I'm just nervous that all of the things that we need to discuss in task 4, hopefully we're able to do all the things.
And Elisa, I would say, and you know how to do this, go in well prepared and share more than you ask.
Okay.
And just get consensus from the work that you do, and you can make it go much faster. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you'll be able to do that well. I have no doubt about that.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question. With the, make sure I don't waste too much. I guess I don't, even though it's online, you know, the paper thing, that's why I put my images and I try to make them fit on a page. So does it matter how many pages the after, like in the appendices, does it matter how many pages we go with our slides, being to make sure that they're big enough?
Well, just you
should
see
be able to get.
You see the screens that are on this page right here? Can you see the screens? That should be about what we should see.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Dr. Revis? Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, just so I can read them, and if I can't read them, Krista, I'll let you know.
Okay, because mine were pretty small, but okay, I'll make sure I make them a little bit bigger then.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're right, you don't want to go pay one per page, definitely not. But if you can get 6 slides per page, that would be good, or even, you know, as long as we can read it. And if I can, I'll let you know. All right.
Lisa, going back to your question, how many people's on your team?
5, including,
5.
yeah, 5.
And again, sometimes you can't always get all 5. And if you've got yourself and 2 others or three, then you're good to go too. Sometimes
Okay.
you always have those 2 or 3 that you can, or couple anyway, that no matter what, you can always depend on.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to work with what you've got. You try, but you work with what you've got. Don't overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
Do the best you can, but don't overthink it. Okay.
But this has to go also, we have to meet with our PLC, but we also have to present it to admin. So
Yeah, your PLC, the reason you've got to meet with PLC, your PLC, you've got the lead, and your PLC actually should be a part of the process of developing this action plan. And again, like I just told Elisa, you go into that meeting almost with a finished product, and you're presenting, and they can make they may say, okay, Tara, Lisa, did you think about so and so? So if it's something that you haven't thought about, all you've got to go back in is tweak it and fix it. But this is an activity that you need to have really thought about, and you're leading. You're going to lead that PLC with where you feel like it needs to go, and then ask for their suggestions in addition to what you think. Okay.
and I guess my last question on that is, so when we're presenting to administration, if principal at my school, for instance, it's principal, AP, and then IC, if we can't get all 3 of them,
As long
what
as
is the
you
minimum?
try to get the principal at the minimum.
Okay.
And if you can't get the principal and they're not there, we will accept an AP. We will accept that if all else fails.
Yeah. Just say that in your narrative. The principal was not available or whatever. So instead I presented to assistant principal and instructional coach or whatever. And don't forget, you can do Zooms for that.
Perfect.
And again, Elisa, Elisa's gone. I was going to say to any of you that you could, with this last PLC, if it works best for you, sometimes, you may have to do a Zoom meeting with them this time. They may say that's what's going to work best. And honestly, sometimes I have learned that people focus better on a Zoom meeting than if you're sitting down, because they get distracted with each other or whatever, but they stay focused. And I've learned, even on my job, Dr. Evans, I meet with my staff many times virtually now because I get more out of them virtually.
Okay. Angela, did you have any questions before we leave?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Yes, Dr. Rivas, my question is, when I'm doing my revision, I found that I didn't realize that I need to put them in the completed, or do I need to wait for your notes to put them in there? Because I didn't, I realized putting them in the completed drop-in box.
Okay. You all, your assignment Dropbox, you always need to keep them in that instructor and peer review thread. Okay.
So you tell me to put them there.
Right. When you make all your revisions, or after a couple and I feel like it's going to be proficient, I'll tell you to move on. Okay. All right.
Because I'm like, oh, I didn't even see the note to say they'll put them in there.
Yeah. I didn't hear that. What was that?
I didn't realize it was a note to ask me to.
Yeah. Where are you looking at my grades?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay, when you pull up my grades, it's and go to task 2 or 3, it's gonna pull up all my comments.
Okay,
Okay, and it'll archive them. It'll tell you like the first time you submitted, this is what I asked you to revise. The second time you submitted, I will say you still need to address this, or I may say that's when you're ready to submit to the assignment Dropbox.
okay. And
Okay.
also, thank you. The other question,
Okay.
if you're able to meet with your principal, you can go ahead and do the slide and submit that with the disclaimer.
You're going in and out on me. Say that one more time.
So when you do your task 4, if you're unable to meet with your principal and admin team, are you able to submit your slideshow, your presentation?
Are you able to miss it?
She said,
Submit it.
can you submit it? Like if you can't,
Yes, by all means. So go ahead and submit it and just write down that you've got a meeting scheduled for whenever. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I misunderstood that too. Yeah.
but what if you, like piggybacking off of what she said, what if you can't do the virtual thing with them either? And can you send them the presentation? They look at it and then review? No, not that. Okay.
You've got to present.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have
That's it.
one
Face
last
them down the
question.
hallway.
I
Thank
have
you.
one last question. When we do our Zoom team meeting, the only thing we're submitting is that link once it's recorded, correct?
That's correct,
That is it.
Shawnee.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Renee, did you have a question?
Not at this time. I was just listening to everybody, but I'm gonna try and
Okay.
get those corrections to you shortly or either
Okay.
tomorrow by tomorrow.
Okay, Renee.
Okay.
The other question I had, we have one Zoom meeting. Should we go ahead and schedule another Zoom, the next person to lead to schedule their meeting, or no, we wait?
Just wait until the next activity comes up and then y'all make a decision then who's going to do what.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Good
All
night.
right, everybody. Are we done?
I think that's it. Thank y'all so much. Smiling, Crystal.
Thank you.
Y'all gonna
Daniel,
be fine.
Daniel, you're going to be fine.
Let me know if I can support you.
Thanks.
Okay.